Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be making some pretty things together. I have this old basket and I really love all of the details, and we just need to freshen it up a bit. So we're going to take this Waverly chalk paint in white and we're going to do a little dry brushing. So what you do is you're just going to dip your paintbrush in your paint, and then you're going to wipe it on a dry cloth or anything that doesn't, carry lint. And then with a heavy hand, you're just going to brush over top of all the details. This is so great because we're not actually trying to get full coverage. Basically what we're doing is just dulling down, any orange tones that are in the wood. And it is such an easy way to update an old basket we might have in our stash. Just remember, when you're working with a basket like this with the weave, you want to make sure that you're taking the brush in all different directions so that you're hitting the inside spots as well. There's no right or wrong way of doing this. It is really simple and you just do it until your eyes are happy. Now I'm going to take this little wood palette from the Dollar Tree and I've broken off some of the slats. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue two of the slats together, and then I'm going to glue the next set of two together and then the two twos together to make a little sign. You can actually use any piece of scrap wood you have. I just didn't have any on hand, and we're going to use some transfers on top of this, so I just needed a hard surface to work with. Okay, so now I'm going to take a little piece of drop cloth and I'm going to lay my little wood sign on top and just trace it out with a pencil, and then I'll go in with my rotary cutters and just cut around the marks that I've made. This doesn't need to be perfect because I'm going to go in and I'm going to fray the edges. So I should be cutting a little bit on the outside, so just be careful if you're doing it this way to make sure you cut a little on the outside so when you fray, you still cover up the wood that's behind it. Once I get it frayed to my liking, then I'm just going to glue it to our little wood piece. Okay, now we're going to start with our transfer. The one I'm using is by Redesign with Prima, and it's called Floral Home. There are 4 large designs inside of this tube, and what happened was when I was pulling out another one, it easily comes undone the way that they're raveled, and they can easily get damaged. And what happened was I damaged this one, so it kind of raveled on top of each other and it started to peel up on the other pieces. So when this happens, because it's happened a couple of times to me now, I just use the pieces in other projects. So what I've done is I've started cutting away pieces from the part that got messed up, and I'm just kind of picking and choosing parts that I want to use and just getting those down, and we're going to start layering this to create a little piece of art. So I get that down and I peel it up and I go back in with the carrier sheet and burnish it, and that's just the rubbing over top of it to make sure it's not going to peel up on any edges. Then I'm going in and I'm just kind of looking to see what could I use where. And honestly, this is where your imagination comes into play, your creativity. There's nothing perfect about it. There's no wrong way, there's no right way. Just start pulling out pieces and layering it. The worst thing that could happen is you really don't like it and you start all over. But I think you'll come to find that once you start layering the pieces, you can layer over top of something you don't like. If there's a little leaf sticking out, then you can layer on top of that. And you just keep doing it until your eyeballs are happy. So like I said, I'm just going in and I'm picking out pieces and I'm doing what I like to call fussy cutting. And I'm taking a little teeny pair of scissors and I'm just fussy cutting around all of the details that I want or the flowers that I want, and I'm getting those put down. Just try not to overthink it. You know that your opinion is the only one that counts, and what you think is pretty is what you should go with. Okay, now I'm going to take a piece of muslin and I just ripped it off of a bigger piece that I have, and I'm pleating the ends, and I'm just going to glue it onto our little sign. Then I wrap it around, and you can attach this any way you want. And if you don't want it permanently attached, then you can even tie it on. What I did was after I tied it on one side, I wrapped it around the basket handle and I glued it to the sign on the other side. I didn't glue the sign to the basket because maybe one day I'll want to change it up. And all I'll have to do is just cut the muslin. Then I take another piece of muslin and I create a little bow, just a hand-tied bow, something simple, and glue that to the side. And I love the way this turned out. I think it's very pretty. Okay, so now I have another piece from my stash from a couple of years ago, and it's this little graduation sign by Ray Dunn that I found at TJ Maxx for only $1 on clearance. Always keep your eyes out for things in the clearance rack because you never know what you could use them for. If it's a good base, then probably you could definitely use it for something great. I take this IOD frames mold and the Cameo mold, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create some castings and we're going to layer those on to create a really pretty piece of art. The first thing I do with my molds is I always take some cornstarch and spread that all over the mold so that the clay releases a lot easier. I'm going to create 2 of these frames. Now I'm going to take our Das air dry clay, and this clay is a little wetter, so it's a little stickier, so you do tend to have to like work it a little bit more so that it's not so tacky. And I just gently start to press that into the mold. I'm pushing it in just gently and picking out the clay as I go because I don't want to, kind of pull out too much. I don't want it to dry too fast. And then I go in with my spatula knife and I just gently rub along the micro edge. These molds have a great micro edge, so they're really easy to clean up. And once I get him flipped out, what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go in and repeat the process. So we start with cornstarching our mold, filling it gently with our clay, making sure to press it out so there's no air bubbles, and then taking our little spatula and cleaning up all of the edges. Now I'm going to lay them on my base and I'm going to make sure they're exactly where I want them. I'm going to take some quick and thick tight bond glue and just put that all over the back of the casting and get that glued down where I want them. I just put on a generous amount and then I take an old paintbrush and I make sure that I paint the glue towards all of the edges and then gently put the casting down and just kind of tap gently around all of the edges so that it stays down without any lifting as it dries, because as it dries it will shrink. I then repeat those steps for the second piece and get that one down as well. Now I want to go back to the Cameo mold and I'm going to cornstarch that as well, and we're going to cast 2 of these to go in the center of the frames. I'm also going to cornstarch this little medallion because I want to create a little bit of extra detail on the framed base itself. Now we're just going to repeat our steps and work our clay into our mold and then clean them up. I again go in with some tight bond quick and thick and use my old paintbrush and make sure I have a nice layer of glue on those and glue those right to the center of those frames. Then I take the little medallion and I glue that at the top of the base. I make another set and peel those back and just look at the details. This is absolutely stunning. Once I get those glued down, I'm just going to set it aside to dry. Once it's dry, I'm going to take my all-in-one paint by Heirloom Traditions in the color Peony. I love this. It's so pretty. It's really the palest pink that I've come across, and the paint self levels. It's just a really nice paint to work with. It's hard to pick up on camera. It is a lot pinker in person than it is under the bright lights. And what I do is I just go around and I just start putting a nice coat on the entire piece. I always go in with a foam roller or a little foam brush and I tap out my brush strokes. I had to put 3 coats on top of this. Now once it's dry, I'm going to go in with some more white chalk paint by Waverly, and I'm going to load my brush, but I'm also going to go and pull most of it off. I just want barely a little bit, just so that we can go ahead and dry brush over all of the details of the castings. And again, because the colors are so light, it is really hard to tell under these lights, but I assure you, it is coming out a really nice shabby chic French country light and airy feel. I just continue to layer around the pieces and take a wet wipe and wipe back any over paint that got on the base that I don't want to show. Now that it's nice and dry, I'm going to take this flour sackcloth and rip it into a couple of strips and make 2 simple knotted bows. What I'm doing is I'm not gluing these on with hot glue sticks. I'm just going to take some little glue dots for now, as I'm not sure that I want to adhere them permanently or if I want to layer something else in there later. I'm also trying to decide whether or not I'm going to stand this on its own or hang it up. For now, I'm just going to go with standing it on its own. I'm really happy with the way that it came out, and I think it looks really pretty in its new space. Now, I went to the Goodwill store and I found this 99-cent Rooster primitive country wall pocket. What I'm going to start with first is I am going to remove Mr. Rooster. Once I get him popped off, I'm just going to sand down that space just a little bit, just because I'm not sure what kind of paint was on here before, but it's definitely starting to peel. Now I'm going in with my home decor chalk paint in the color Sheepskin by Folkart. And I'm just going to give it a nice even coat. I go in with my foam brush to again tap out any of the harsh brush strokes, and I just paint the entire thing. Please subscribe and like or comment below so that it helps me get out into the algorithm as a new YouTuber. Once I get 3 coats on this, actually it was just 2 coats, I'm going to take my Cameo mold again by IOD, and I'm just going to cornstarch the 2 molds that I want to use. What I want to do now is I just want to get rid of some of those primitive details, and what easier way to do it than to cover it with some molds. So I take these castings and I create 4 of these little small medallions, and I pop those into the corner over top of those leaves. Then I go in with a French country looking cameo and I get that mold popped out, and I'm just going to glue it over top of the center of our little wall pocket. Again, I take our Titebond Quick and Thick, nice headshot, and I get him tapped down around his edges so he doesn't come up. Again with my sheepskin, I'm just going to paint over top of our casting so that it matches the rest of our wall pocket. Once that's dry, I'm going to take a rub-on transfer by Timeless Designs in the Memories of Paris. If you saw one of my other videos, you know that I used this prior, and it comes with several different pieces. So what I do is I take another piece and I kind of just center it where I'd like to have it. I get that pushed down, working out any of the little bubbles, and then I'm going to take my scraper and I'm going to just rub that down. I rub it down, peel it back. If it looks like it's sticking a little bit, I just go back in and rub it down a little harder, and then I get it pulled up. Now I'm taking the carrier sheet and I'm burnishing, and basically that's just rubbing it down and working out any of the bubbles or any of the edges that might be, sticking up a little bit. Now I'm going to take my sanding block and I'm going to sand it just to give it a little bit more of an aged feel. Now I'm taking my classic home wax in the color Antique and I'm going to rub it off on a paper towel, and then I'm just gently rubbing around all of the raised edges that are currently on the wall pocket and that we added. I'm also going around the entire transfer because I want to give this a more aged look. Now you don't have to do this. This part is totally optional. I'm taking a wet wipe and I'm going in and I'm wiping back a lot of the wax in the heavy spots. I continue to do this until I'm happy with the way it looks. I'm going to go in with the wax again and I'm going to do the top part with the casting at the top, and again just wiping it all back until I'm really happy with the way that it looks. Talk about transformations. Goodbye to our little rooster. And here we go. I've kind of staged and shown you what you could do with the projects we made today. Added florals to the basket, florals to the wall pocket, added a shabby chic bow on the side, and then our freestanding art. I think everything turned out great. Thank you guys. See you later.